Hello, dear viewer. It's the Pilk guy from that YouTube short with 7,000 views that you probably didn't see. It still tastes like shit. I asked my dearest viewers to send me their favorite sad songs of all time, and today I'm going to rank them on this tier list here. That's about the size of it. Let's hop in, shall we? Northwest Rain 2399 says, "So You Want to Be a Superhero" by Carissa's Weird. No words can articulate what this song makes me feel. This song sounds like giving up in a completely miserable way. There's no big eruption of sound on this song. It starts and remains pretty quiet, but it allows for this haunting message to rip right through my poor innocent ear canals. The production aids that pretty well, gives it this distant and fragile sound. This is devastating shit right here. I'm already not having fun. I'm gonna go unbearable agony. We're all gonna die. Oliver Southall says 4th of July by Sufjan Stevens. A common go-to for the depressed music fan, and while it's almost a classic within that category, the song has knocked less and less of my socks off the more I hear it. Very simplistic sound on this song, and while the lyricism is enough to make a grown boar cry, everything else here is incredibly minimalistic, as is the rest of the album, and I think that was the point. But the ending of this song is really the most haunting part by a decent amount. A very powerful story about grief, but as a song, got very few qualities inspiring me to wiggle my finger, if that makes sense. Tears are certainly in my eyes, though. Imam 1480 says Hiding by Trembler. That's a shoulder shrug from me, I'm afraid. It's got kind of a failure-esque sound, with perhaps more interesting vocals, I guess. I do enjoy the vocals quite a bit here. I think the chemistry is fairly on point between the two vocalists here. I just kind of wish a little more took place on this track. It gets a little stale towards the end. It's got to be sad, but no more than that. Kona Peep says, I Don't Love by Have a Nice Life. Another classic within the depressed person's bag. Really the entirety of Death Consciousness could be here, but I think this song perhaps portrays misery in the most straightforward way on the album, even if I don't think it's the saddest song on the project. Absolutely slams you with shoegazy goodness while delivering perhaps the singular most emo lyrics I've ever read in my young life. It's a banger, but not a favorite of mine off this project, to be honest. I'm going to say top of Tears in my eyes. Zeke Does Stuff YouTube says Fade to Black by Metallica. Got me through a real tough situation when I was younger, and now I just cry every time I hear it. All-time classic track from Metallica right here. Probably my favorite track off of Ride the Lightning as well, and certainly a sad listen. Sonically, certainly not the most interesting shit you'll ever hear from Metallica, but it's got this beautiful little acoustic build-up that's just absolutely iconic, and the lyricism here is probably some of Mr. Hetfield's better work. I'll say back of Tears in my eyes.
Death is real. Someone's there.
I Snort Crouton says Real Death by Mount Eerie. It's a tricky one, to be honest. The lyricism here is absolutely devastating. I'm not here to fight anybody about that. But as a song, it really just doesn't do all that much. Extremely sparse instrumentation that kind of just has the song almost read as a poem, which isn't a bad thing. It's just a thing that I've said to you now. Heartbreaking track, though, and one of the most harrowing depictions of grief I've heard in music, for sure. Back of Unbearable Agony. Cyborg 4234 says Knees by Injury Reserve. Very different sadness portrayed in this song, and honestly an angle I like quite a bit. Tackles more regret, if I had to guess. Kind of just the struggle of getting older and how quickly you're kind of thrown into what I can only describe as a circus. And sonically, this is some pretty peak shit. I'd draw a vague Death Grips comparison to the production here with much less shenanigans going on. This is a great track. Back, Tears in my eyes. Henry Lowenthal 1497 says Motion Picture Soundtrack by Radiohead. Every time it comes on, it makes me feel like getting in my car, go 120, and crash into a pole. I've been a lifelong motion picture soundtrack. There's actually not a word to conclude that sentence. I looked for at least a little bit. I think it's good, but not excellent. But in terms of being sad, it's certainly sad. Very funeral-esque sound to this song. The organ especially makes this song sound like kind of the end. If this shit started playing while I sank down into the pits of hell, that would make a lot of sense to me. Banger track, beautiful shit from Mr. Tom York. Unbearable Agony, Above Mount Eerie. Golf 9813 says Musician by Kinoku Teikoku. Song has never failed to make me feel a sense of great despair. There's an elephant in my room stopping me from being able to explain any of the lyricism here, but regardless of the language barrier, there's certainly a sadness just in the vocal delivery itself. That does make me want to curl up into a ball at least a little bit. Really beautiful instrumentation to back it up. I'd probably call this song beautiful before I'd call it sad. But were I a completely different person capable of understanding Japanese, maybe there'd be a different story to tell. I'm going top of sad. Headache 2503 says Between the Bars by Elliott Smith. Really tough listen here, as is the case with a lot of Elliott Smith's music, especially in the context of his demise. The vocal delivery here is really odd to me. It's almost comforting, but the lyrics themselves sharply contrast the delivery, I guess. It dances around the line of being a comforting song and making me want to claw my eyes out of my skull, and truly very few other artists have ever been able to replicate that sound successfully. I'll say top of Tears in My Eyes.
Felt like stone, voices of friends.
Alum Casa 48-7 says Streets of Philadelphia by Bruce Springsteen. I don't know if I get it, to be honest, though I could say that about most Bruce Springsteen moments. Though that slide he did at the Super Bowl that one time was pretty sick. Sonically, the song is very odd to me. It's got very desolate production, but the vocal delivery itself doesn't really do much for me. Sorry, Bruce Springsteeners. Back of sad from me.
I just wanted to be yours. Can I?
Randy Silverchair says Strangers by Ethel Cain. Yeah, this is some sad shit right here. Some absolutely sensational vocals on this track. Really doing a lot of the heavy lifting. But the instrumentation, while it's sparse for a lot of the song, absolutely erupts towards the end. It makes this 6-minute song feel much longer than that. Much bigger than that, even. Pretty great track. I'm going to say Tears in My Eyes behind Elliott Smith. Marino's 1409 says Frogs by Alice in Chains. That in a very strange way, as I don't really find myself relating to the lyricism here, but it's true that this song perhaps paints the most vivid picture of Lane Staley's death. A very harrowing and just dark and gritty song about his own fate. Absurdly dark shit. But I don't know that sadness is exactly the word I'd use, but also I don't know what other word I would use in exchange. So now I'm in a real pickle. I don't know.
I wish that I could turn back time.
RJ Scooper says Come Susser Todd by Ariane. I hate this song, and it's also the greatest song ever. You ever see that picture of Robert, Mr. Incredible Parr? Probably on your screen, or I forgot. This song in context is certainly harrowing, and it's definitely tragic even out of that context, but having Evangelion ball knowledge certainly adds another layer to this track that some of you may not have. Sonically, the song almost sounds upbeat, gives this track such a terrifying and almost creepy element. But lyrically, it's just a giant, depressing blob of misery. It's beautiful. Top of Unbearable Agony. It's a Special Tower 1979, says Danny Says by the Ramones. I cannot lie, this is some of the most average stuff I've heard in my life. Sounds like a classic track in the way that it sounds like a product of its time, and with no nostalgia at all of myself, I can't say this stuck with me in any way. Didn't seem that sad either. Lyrically not all that interesting, and sonically not all that interesting. I'm going to say not sad. Solomon McGuire says You're Somebody Else by Flora Cash. This is some solid stuff, I think. Very minimalist again. Maybe that's how they make shit sad. I've never thought about it like that. But this sounds like some shit you'd hear at the end of the saddest movie you've ever seen in your entire life. Really tragic track lyrically. I do wish there was a little more going on sonically. This is good stuff. Say Tears in My Eyes behind Metallica. Poppy Crisp says Flume by Bon Iver. Depressing listen makes me feel depressed. Indeed, depressing listen for sure. Just a guy in an acoustic guitar. I know I've been harping on minimalism this entire video, but tracks like this just do that shit right. And honestly, I don't know why. I do really like the vocals here. They're very raw, and I think when the female vocalist steps in towards the end of the track, it puts this beautiful pink bow on the whole thing. Great stuff. Tears in My Eyes behind Metallica.
The dead know what they're doing when they leave this world behind when they're here.
Rilla Freiser says Nights That Won't Happen by Purple Mountains. Feels like a goodbye since David took his life about a month after the album's release. This song is also kind of comforting in some sort of way. Always terrible to hear someone took their own life, and sonically it's a pretty sweet listen, but the vocals themselves just really don't gel with me. I think there's a place for it. There's just not a lot of oomph behind these words, as sad as lyrics may be. Let's say sad behind the Japanese.
By the
Shoegazer Productions 7706 says Wandering Boy by Rodney Crowell. Part of a 2-song sequence about real-life twin brothers that Rodney knew in real life growing up, one gay and one homophobic. First song covers the gay brother living with HIV. This one is from the other brother's perspective when he comes home with nowhere else to go. Watching him confront his prejudice and do the right thing is heartbreaking. Country music addressing homophobia in 2001. I mean, is the story here sad? Certainly, but when I decide to dive into the depressing song pool, I think often it's for connection, a way to relate the feelings I'm feeling through song. And while the story is certainly tragic, it's not one I can really click with, to be honest. And country's never been my bread and butter either. One had low odds of success, I'm afraid. But it's sad. I'm going back as sad.
Sweet as ether, eyes are blind.
Riddlebug says Sweet Euphoria by Chris Cornell. This is a good acoustic song. Chris sings the shit out of this song, man. Can't say I'm incredibly familiar with Mr. Cornell's solo work, but I know a little bit. And just knowing Chris Cornell, it's a recipe for success. A lot of these grunge guys thrived in the acoustic sessions, and I will never forgive society for robbing us of Soundgarden Unplugged. This is a really sweet track. I don't know if it's a standout from his own acoustic work, but it's all got a similar sound, and that sound is pretty good. I'm going top of sad. Age C1H says Birds of a Feather by Kind of Like Spitting. Super banger right here. Perhaps not the saddest song called Birds of a Feather, oddly enough, but regardless, a pretty tough listen for sure. Got that emo vocal style, but he's not screaming at the top of his lungs, so that's a plus. And some absolutely sensational guitar to back it all up. I don't know if these guys actually contain a single other song worth listening to, but this is a banger for sure. But I will say it is first a banger and then a sad song. I hope that makes sense to you. I'm going to say Tears in My Eyes behind Metallica.
It's just the times I leave, and you say
The Quark 414 says Waiting for My Real Life to Begin by Colin Hay. It sounds like some shit your dad would play and then you'd never forget it. That's really the only way I can describe it. It's a very simple track, but something about the vocal delivery here is just kind of sticking with me. I like it a lot, and some really powerful lyrics and a message you don't often get out of your sad slop, but still an easy one to come to terms with. I'll say Unbearable Agony behind Kid A. The Muffin Man 1726 says Black by Pearl Jam. The lyrics, the pure need in Eddie's voice on why. Nothing can top that sadness. Another all-time classic in the depressed man's school bag. I don't have too much to add that I haven't already added 14 times, but it's one of the most devastating songs of the grunge era by far, and that's no easy feat. All those guys were miserable. Captures a very real and incredibly relatable misery while also having this energy of anger in it. It's a magical song that I don't think could be replicated. I'm going to go top of Unbearable Agony. Oliver Southall says, I Don't Want It by Ween. I've recently started my Ween journey, and this song has been on repeat since day one. Pearl Jam's top spot was short-lived, I'm afraid, but welcome to the world of Ween, big dog. This is one of my favorite songs ever written. I think lyrically it's incredibly personal to Gene, but also incredibly approachable to the average person, and the guitar solo to end this song is genuinely a top 5 moment in music for me, period. Top of Unbearable Agony.
Fam had doubts. You told me you was proud. I did some things, you did some things, always came.
I'm Late to School says The Book of Soul by Absol. The song is about Alori Joe, a former member of the same label, TDE, who took their own life after jumping off a radio tower in 2012. The song serves as a sort of love letter as Absol had been dating her for 7 years and had known her since grade school. Jesus Christ. It honestly sounds like some shit I wasn't supposed to hear. It's a very personal track to the point of almost discomfort, to be honest, but an incredibly powerful story of regret and a message to the dead. It's a heartbreaking track. And honestly, I don't really want to think about it anymore. Unbearable Agony, above Mount Erie. Pixelated says Tonight Tonight by the Smashing Pumpkins. I don't know, I never really found this song sad in any way. I find it beautifully optimistic, and for a long time it was a song I'd throw on when I felt like shit to feel a little better. Song almost about believing in yourself or the belief other people have in you. It's a beautiful song, but I don't see the sad angle, to be frank. I'm going not sad. Cato's Luco says Ok A Vida Me Do by Fausto, a song from one of the best Portuguese albums of all time. It's about letting the sea take everything you got. Could be sad, I don't really know. Language barrier thing, I think we've done this before. A pretty track though, I think. I quite like the piano medley. I can't say I really care for the vocal delivery. There's not too much more for me to describe here, to be honest. I'm gonna go, I don't really know. John RE7 says, Where Did You Sleep Last Night by Nirvana. The song itself isn't the saddest, but Kurt's incredibly raw vocals in the room where this masterpiece was performed just make it such an emotional piece, especially in the final part of the song. Absolutely an iconic moment in music history right here, and a very bittersweet performance, I think, in the context of Kurt's death. But I don't know how sad it really makes me. It's a great track. I just honestly don't know where I'd place it on an emotional scale. Very raw and powerful performance. I'm just not sure sad is exactly the right word. I mean, it's sad, but not the saddest thing you get from these Nirvana guys. I'm gonna go sad behind the Japanese album again.
I've forgotten all the pain.
Oxide Like Oxide says Angels Don't Need Friends by Bill Clint. My childhood was a nightmare, and this song makes me think of all of it. Everything that's gone, everything I can't go back to, and the things I'll just never have. Sorry to hear that, man. This track's a pretty tough listen for sure. I must admit I wished it did a little more with its 11-minute runtime, but were this track half the length with the same message and structure, I think this would be a great track to drink far too much liquor to. Let's say Tears in My Eyes behind Bon Iver. The Boink 67 says Fro Fro Foxes and Midsummer Fires by the Cocteau Twins. Probably just flat out my favorite song from the Cocteau Twins period, and one of my favorite album closes of all time as well. I have no idea what she's fucking saying, almost ever, but especially on this track. The beauty of this track, though, is it's surreal. The vocals through the chorus sections is some genuinely angelic shit, indescribably beautiful, and there's a sadness to it, I think. I'm not sure how sad that sadness is, because I don't know what the fuck she's saying, but sad is sad. Thanks. Top of tears in my eyes, I'm confused.
And thinks of all the things he can't enjoy.
Muldowney21 says, "Scorn Not His Simplicity" by Luke Kelly. Song's about a child with special needs who has no hope in the world. This one didn't click with me too hard, to be honest. Kind of a similar thing where it's certainly sad from an objective standpoint, but it's hard to put myself in the shoes of this child with special needs who has no hope in the world. Sonically didn't knock my socks off either. Pretty uninteresting across the board. I probably won't be back. Go back as sad. I Know a Guy 23 says 10,000 Days by Tool. Banger from these Tool guys, maybe I'll check them out sometime. A very touching story about Maynard's late mother, incredibly beautiful tribute to a woman that really changed his life. The far superior part of the two parts of 10,000 Days, if that means something to you. And flat out one of, if not Tool's most emotional and vulnerable song. Comes off a little different when it's the guy usually yelling at you about butt stuff or some fucking math problem, but it's a very important song in their catalog, and certainly a touching song. I'm gonna go Unbearable Agony, above Absol. Northwest Rain 2399 says Streetlights by Kanye West. Never been too high on 808s and Heartbreaks, but this track is certainly a standout off that project. Very direct view into Kanye's mind, I think, here, and a song about longing, something I'm pretty sure anyone could relate to. Really well produced, as you were typically getting out of pre-lobotomy Kanye, and like I said, it's a highlight off this project. I'll say Tears in My Eyes, behind Metallica. Azonia 2535 says I Want You to Know That I'm Awake by Car Seat Headrest. Maybe just my favorite song from these guys as well. Like a lot of their music, the lyrics come off very authentic, very personal, but also very powerful. Anxiety kind of screams through this entire track, and if it's something you deal with, it's hard not to click with this song. Sensational guitar work on this track as well. Really great vocals here. There's this cool part at the start with another vocalist that I really like, but yeah, this song is about as peak as shit gets. I'm gonna say behind Ween in Unbearable Agony. Mayrag23 says Stranger Things Have Happened by the Foo Fighters. Niche track from a not-so-niche band right here. Is it good? I'm on the fence, dear viewer. It's an acoustic rock track, and from my uncomfortably extensive knowledge of David Eric Grohl, that should probably work, and I'm afraid it only kind of does in this situation. Got this weird country tang to it in both the vocals and even the guitar work, I think, and it just makes this song a really weird blend of two kind of alright pieces of a puzzle. Lyrics are sweet, though. I'm at least a little sad. Go sad behind this Dragonfly theme. Jonathan Lufkin says Spectre by Radiohead. Honestly, I've never really gotten the hype. Certainly a beautiful track, though, and Tom York's voice itself just kind of echoes sadness to me. It's strange. Lyrically, I don't know if I get it, though I didn't think about it for that long, but it's another track I find more beautiful than sad, I think. I'll go top of sad. Amika Egbuka Fan says 4th of July by Soundgarden. The guitar riff at the beginning and the first vocals gave me such a large sense of despair. Combined with the overall dissonance, it just makes me feel sad. I also listened to it too much during my most recent breakup, so that probably has something to do with how I view the song. I think that does a lot with how you view this song. A guy like me, this song fucks. That's about it. I like it a lot. Some of the sickest guitar work heard within Soundgarden's music. And a classic performance from one of the all-time GOATs in Chris Cornell. I don't really see the sadness here personally. I find it far more of a hype song than I do a sad one, to be honest. I'm going to say not sad. Awesome Man 46 says Blackest Bile by Giles Corey. This song genuinely feels hopeless, like it was written in a nuclear fallout or some kind of wasteland, and all that's left is this hollow piece of music. The entire album just invokes a feeling of dread. I was going to say this sounds a lot like stripped down Have a Nice Life, and then a quick Google search unveiled that that's actually the case. Definitely interesting to hear a more laid-back track in the same fairly depressing style, and I think the guitar work here offers a completely different experience than the one you get listening to Have a Nice Life. Pretty great stuff. Vocals are excellent here, and the instrumentation backs it all up fairly well. I wouldn't favor it over Have a Nice Life, but it's certainly cool to hear, and it's great stuff. I'm going to say above 10,000 Days in the Unbearable Agony tier. Cosmic confluence of pyramids hollow. Aquafontaine says Dream Suite in C Major by Miracle Musical. Tally Hall's side project that goes so hard, this song especially, is pretty depressing, especially within the story of the album. Quite honestly, I feel like I should be looking at some strange collage of Zac Efron pictures at the end of High School Musical. I imagine that's the concept of the artist Miracle Musical, but it's just not something I find myself that interested in. Hard to hear the song without imagining some guy doing a jig. which makes it even harder to be sad. I'm gonna go back a sad.
Stop this train. I wanna get off.
Effects Twinning 143 says Stop This Train by John Mayer. Song I dedicate to my father. I didn't get to that before he passed away. If you love him, let him know. Banger from John Mayer right here, I think. A lot of Continuum is pretty good, but I think a decent amount of, at least for me, is nostalgia-based, as it kind of sounds like it is for you as well. Very beautiful and simple track right here, though. Some sweet guitar work from Mr. Mayer, some very solid vocals to tie it all up. Sweet track lyrically, too. I'd say I find it a little sweeter than I do sad. I don't really know what that means. Sad behind Spectre. Nullify 404 says Beach Funeral by Car Seat Headrest. Genuinely hits me like a truck whenever I hear it. The organ that plays throughout the song is so hauntingly beautiful that I can't help but tear up. The song perfectly describes the feeling of watching a relationship that you know is bad for you slowly fall apart while you desperately try to hold on to any sort of connection that was once there. That was all one sentence. There's certainly some pretty haunting stuff right here. The organ is the main factor to that, I'd say. Super distorted in a way that just kind of scares me a little bit, to be honest. Lyrically incredibly dark song. Certainly not any of Will Toledo's best songwriting, I wouldn't say. But it's still got some nice progression. I'm certainly sad, but I don't think I'd call this one of their saddest songs. I'm gonna say Tears in My Eyes above Death Consciousness. D. Peniston 84 says Lady Elect by Unwound. Not only is the actual music fucking devastating, but I just learned that the song was written after the lead singer's friend took their own life. The track reminds me of quite a bit of Slint. I think most obviously in the vocal delivery, but also a lot of the instrumental work. It seems that's at the forefront here, and the vocals themselves, while I can't say are all that impressive, certainly don't take anything away from this track. The drums and guitar work here, though, are absolutely fantastic. Really damn good song, and lyrically super dark, but not so dark that I want to claw my eyes out of my head. Let's say Tears in My Eyes above Beach Funeral. That's all I have written here. Sorry it took so long. May is surely our month. That's you and me, buddy. Subscribe if you enjoyed, and I hope to see you in the next one. Peace.